Okay, so let's move over to Roaming Gamer. Ed,
Okay.
I think you had some recent updates to your template library and to Supermeter. Tell us about those.
I did. Just to reiterate, previously I promised on your show that, or the Hangout, that I was going to update my templates, and I finally got around to it. So I'm going to say that 90% of the templates have been updated to Graphics 2.0. The only ones that have not, I believe, are the Jigsaw puzzle template, which is actually Graphics 2.0 compatible, except for the jigsaw shapes, and I won't go into that why here. It just has something to do with the anchor system. It was a little bit hard for me to make it simple and explain it to people, so I decided not to do the conversion. Um, and I believe the green throttle has not yet been updated, although it should still be compatible at this point. I mean, there's really nothing changed in the Graphics 2.0 that would require changes there. The big thing that I wanted to talk about today, thank you for giving me the chance, was while I was doing this, I decided to update the Supermeter tool, which is one of the tools that I use myself, which is kind of a new thing I'm going to. I've decided to do, I have this thing that you can't see it, of course. It's on my, right at the top of my screen. It says make dog food. So my policy is now, don't make something that I'm not going to use myself. I know it sounds funny, but
No,
really, I mean,
yeah, no, that makes sense.
you're more motivated to keep something up to date and make sure that it works properly if you're going to be using it. And this is something that I personally use on all of my projects. So I'll just jump into it. I'm going to share my screen with you here. If I can get my act together. Act together.
And I guess, did we explain this for anybody who doesn't remember, that the Supermeter basically taps into the the memory utilization on the device and shows everything in very good detail.
Yeah, so Supermeter, the original one was a frames. Basically, it was a way to run this in one line of code. You could run this utility, and then you could run your app on the device or in the simulator. It didn't matter. And you could check what kind of frame rate you were getting over time, how much memory you were using, and then how much video memory you were using. It also gave you a few details about the system architecture, the resolutions you were running at, whether or not you were running 1x, 2x, 4x, as far as the, what's the word I'm seeking here? The suffix. But when I decided to do the 2.0 update, I said, well, I got to put a little effort in here, so I might as well just put everything in here that I ever wanted when I was debugging. Because like I said, I use it myself all the time. So this new one has everything that the previous one had. And you can see it now on the screen. I'm running it. Let me run it over to the frames. So the way this works is, I'll try to run through it quickly, is it detects what your config file has set for your frame rate target, and then it sets up a meter for you that's 1.5 times that size. And then you can select how many ticks are in your graph and how frequently it updates. And it has a running average window for all the meters. You can change that based on how you do your sampling. But I've given it a sort of like a standard setup that will suit most people. One of the things that's new in this meter is, it used to be that the meters would, let's say you're having a problem with your frame rate and you get these little pegs and they jump off the screen. Or perhaps you were using a lot of memory and your memory was growing unbounded. Pretty soon, let me do this here, pretty soon you'd have a graph like this, which was totally useless to see what was going on. And you'd have to restart your meter and change the target, the setting for the meter height. So in this one, you can dynamically adjust all of your meters. You can't see my finger really here, but I'm going the wrong direction, am I not? You can dynamically adjust your meter so that it makes more sense. Basically, if your app starts off using 1 megabyte, but by the time you get to the part you want to debug, it's at 10 meg, you can simply adjust the meter. Then I realized that this went with another feature, which is a lot of devices nowadays use unified memory, which is the video and the CPU, you could think of it that way, use the same memory for building objects and doing the video storage. So if you want to get a better picture, it'd be nice if you had a graph that combined those two. So this one comes with a graph where you simply just hit the little U there. And then let me zoom out a little bit. And we can see that my game here, the majority of the memory usage is video memory, which is the blue graph on the top. And then the little C there you see is another thing that happens is when you're developing or debugging, the way Lua works is it will allocate memory until it gets to a certain point, and then it will clear memory. And every time it grows to that point, let's say it starts at 1 meg and it grows to 2 meg, 2 meg is the new boundary. So the next time around it has to go to 4 meg before it does a clear. So you get these really weird graphs. So if you're trying to see if you have a leak, it's better to have it clearing memory all the time. And then you'll get, if everything is correct, you'll get a more uniform graph like the one you're seeing here on the screen where it starts to get level. If it grows unbounded, continually growing to the right, then you know you've got a problem. I promised I wouldn't go on too long, so I'm going to jump ahead to the info screen. The info screen is the expansion area that I talked about. I added basically sensors and detection for all kinds of information. And this shows currently 30 screens of information, but it depends on your device. So if you've loaded hundreds of fonts in your app, or you're using a lot of libraries or stuff, this may be 45 screens or whatever. So I'm going to run through it super fast. The first screen is just the basics about your build. Second screen is the architecture, what suffix you're running. Resolutions, little details from the OS and the timer. So like the bottom where it's been running for 700 seconds. Hopefully I haven't been talking for that long. OpenGL data, because now we're talking about graphics 2.0. It's nice to know what the different architectural information is for the OpenGL rendering, etc. Your extensions, which may not be too useful for most folks. Let's see. This one's useful. What packages have you loaded? So I oftentimes will run into a problem where I'm like, why is this thing not working? Duh, it's because I didn't require the right library or whatnot. So you can verify here that all the libraries you need are in fact loaded. So it looks like I've got 3 screens of libraries loaded. What directories are present into your system? What fonts do you have loaded? This is another thing. I had a tool previously where you could dump out all the fonts that you had, but you had to include it separately. One of the problems I run into is font names sometimes are different in iOS or Android. So this is a quick way to go in and say, I'm expecting to be seeing Apple color emoji, and I put a space in there. Well, that would be incorrect because, whoops, because this one has no spaces. It's in the middle if you don't see it. Fonts, 12 pages of fonts. The camera is found, photo library, etc. What pop-ups are supported? All the inputs from your accelerometer, your gyroscope, etc. So they're all working. GPS is working. And then a test at the very end to verify visually that your suffix is working. So I'm almost done. So one of the big problems I ran into with customers was oftentimes they would tell me, hey Ed, we really appreciate the work you did on our game, but when I run it and I get to this screen, this thing doesn't look right. And I would tell them, that's really wonderful, but can you give me a screenshot or whatever? And most users are not technically savvy with their own, they don't know how to take a screenshot, right? So what you can do here is simply run the meter or include the meter in your project, send it to your customer, and have them run the game and just keep the meter off to the side, and then when they need it, they can simply open the meter, position it, and let's say that they're running, let me do an example here, they're running my game, and they're seeing something weird when they're playing the game, so they open it up, they click the bounded, and then they draw a little rectangle around the thing that they want.
Database has been updated.
And my virus database has been updated. That's nice. Thank you for telling me that. And they select it, and then they get a little screenshot so they can say, okay, I got the thing that was wrong. Of course, there's nothing wrong with the game now. And then they can simply click the email button and send it to you. and you can supply them with a predefined email address, so it's as simple as clicking email and then send, which I haven't done for the purpose of this video because I don't want to give away my email address. So, and so that's basically my spiel. I went on a little bit longer than I wanted to. The only thing I want to ask folks to do for me is people watching this or you guys on the show, if you have ideas for things that should go in the debug tools, like audio controls or whatever, I would love to hear about it because I'm really looking forward to adding more features here.
And I just want to say that as a developer, the tools that Ed has made are essential. You know, if you're going to be serious about making apps, putting them out there and making sure that you don't get ratings that say this app sucks, it crashes, things like that, get these tools. You know, it's going to make your life so much easier. It is well worth it.
That's right. And where can we find these tools, Ed?
You can find these on the Make Games page over at my website, which is romangamer.com.
Okay.
And we'll include that in the show links.
You know it. We definitely will.
Unfortunately, I've got one of those long URLs that people never going to spell correctly when they're looking for me.
Well, we'll put a link in the show notes, and they'll go right to it. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. I'm amazed by the level of detail that you implement in these tools, and it just looks like they just keep getting better and better.